Welcome to the Book Talk Hour. I'm your host, Kambiz Mostofi, and tonight we're going to be talking about one of my favorite books called by the name of Prodigal Genius, The Life of Nikola Tesla, a extraordinary inventor, an extraordinary human being, and this book is written by John J. O'Neill, and the one I'm holding in particular is a limited edition copy. Only 1,500 copies were printed by the Free Enterprise Institute in 1977. So again, I'm going to be talking about this book here, and it's a classic book. It's by John J. O'Neill. And for those of you who don't know, a few days ago was Nikola Tesla's birthday on July 10th. So first I'm going to start off by reading a little bit. Something from the coil swelled into a crescendo of vicious snaps. From above the room, the original staccato snap was followed by a sharper one, and by another that was like the rapport of a rifle. The next was still louder. They came closer together, like the rattle of a machine gun. The bang high in the air became tremendously louder. It was now the roar of a cannon, with the discharges rapidly following each other as if a gigantic artillery battle was taking place over the building. The sound was terrifying, and the thunder shook the building in most threatening fashion. There was a strange, ghostly blue light in the great barn-like structure. The coils were flaming with masses of fiery hair. Everything in the building was spouting needles of flame, and the place was filled with a sulfurous odor of ozone, fumes of the sparks, which all that was needed to complete the conviction that hell was breaking loose and belching into the building. And that's about Nikola Tesla and his many experiments. And Nikola Tesla was famous for inventing many things, everything from the radio, which we're using now, to neon lights, to the tube that was used eventually in televisions, to many of the great devices that are being used. In fact, I've read recent articles about Google working on an automated car, but it is a reported fact that over 100 years ago, Nikola Tesla did create the first remote control and automated car. So he can be said to have invented the first automaton. He was famous for raising the amount of energy being generated by Niagara Falls. In 1896, General Electric was completing the transmission and distribution to attract electrical energy from Niagara Falls. And Nikola Tesla was hired by the Westinghouse Company to raise the output to 50,000 horsepower, which was an unbelievable achievement at that time for anyone, and he was able to do so. But being the unshrewd businessman that he was, he lost out on profits as he did again and again. But one of the things that he did have in his life were important benefactors, important people who took care of him. And one is J. Pierpont Morgan, who was one of Nikola Tesla's biggest supporters and patrons, and supported Nikola Tesla through all his difficulties. Again, Nikola Tesla was a tremendous, tremendous human being and an absolutely unique inventor. And for many of those who don't know, his alternating current was in competition with the direct currents of Thomas Edison, and it was Nikola Tesla who at one time worked for Thomas Edison on making the direct current system more streamlined and more advanced. And in fact, there was one agreement that Nikola Tesla had with Thomas Edison, in which Thomas Edison had agreed to pay Nikola Tesla a certain sum if Tesla was able to increase or streamline the system created by Thomas Edison. And when Tesla did so, and Tesla asked for the amount of money that should have been owed to him and due to him, he was paid nothing, and was kindly shown the door by Thomas Edison, and said, "You don't understand us Americans. We all have a sense of humor. It was just a joke." And Nikola Tesla ended up leaving the employment of Thomas Edison, where he spent over a year doing hard labor and working under very hard labor conditions, but he swallowed his pride and he accepted the problems which he faced, and he was able to work out of that situation and again bring himself back up to eminence. He was famous for publishing a brochure on a system that he had created, a world system, which now we call radio, and his world system, again, was very important. In his world system, important on several important inventions and discoveries. The first one, the Tesla transformer, which was an apparatus which produced electrical vibrations, and it was tremendously revolutionary for its time, and it generated currents many times stronger than ever generated ever before, and sparks over 100 feet long would be produced by this instrument. So again, a tremendously important invention. And secondly, it was the magnifying transmitter, and arguably Tesla's best invention. It was a peculiar transformer, specially adapted to excite the Earth by using the transmission of electrical energy to be able to fill the Earth the way that a fishbowl would be filled. Tesla had theorized that the Earth can hold electrical current, electrical energy, the same way that a fishbowl can, and by filling the Earth with this energy, you're able to plug in a incandescent lamp somewhere else around the globe by not plugging it into a wall or an outlet. By just putting the incandescent lamp and touching it to the floor, you'll be able to draw electricity from it, because all things have electricity, as our bodies do, and Tesla believed that we can harness this electricity by using this transformer, this magnifying transmitter, to be able to pump electricity into the Earth. Third, it was Tesla's wireless system, and it was a very important invention in regards to transmitting electrical energy economically without wires. And again, this was very, very important. And from the experimental station which had created in Colorado, he demonstrated that this can be effectively used to transmit electricity all across the globe with only a few percentage of electricity energy lost during the transmission. Fourth, it was his ability, it was the art of individualization, the invention of Tesla, which really explored the tuning and the use of frequencies to be able to make possible the transmission of signals or messages, and again, very, very revolutionary stuff, and he was completely ahead of any of his peers, and there is possible that there was jealousy from other individuals who were also scientists who didn't want to see Tesla's technology or even methods being adopted on a global scale. So one of the most important inventions, radio, terrestrial stationary waves, and through this he was able to show that the Earth is responsive to electrical vibrations of definite pitch, just as a tuning fork is to certain waves of sound. And he was able to show that you're able to actually use these vibrations to excite the globe, and many commercial patents actually developed out of this. So his world system was completely revolutionary, and he even created a world system power plant that showed how practical it is to actually achieve 10 million horsepower. So again, he was completely ahead of his time. Facsimile transmission of typed or handwritten characters, establishment of a universal marine service, establishing navigation, inauguration of a system of world printing. All of these would have come out of the world system, power plant and wireless system, and the ability to create interconnection between telephone exchanges, distribution of the news through wireless means. All of these were created from the inventions and systems and methods which Tesla had previously laid out. And again, modern radio owes Tesla, because without Nikola Tesla, we wouldn't have had radio that we have today, and radio owes a big applause to Mr. Tesla, and also to Mr. J. Pierpont Morgan, who was very generous in supporting Nikola Tesla through all his difficulties, and supported Nikola Tesla by connecting him with other important and well-to-do businessmen in the New York circle. And Tesla was unique for having a European aristocratic air about him. He was very shy, but better to say shy. He was introverted, and he was rarely seen out except with maybe once in a while a beautiful woman or an important businessman, a patron, someone who would be supporting him. But Nikola Tesla gave the first public demonstration of wireless, the forerunner of modern radio, and he was able to show that without a doubt that his methods were scientific and they were effective and they were applicable on a global scale. And again, the Morse code, transmission of wireless messages, all these came from Tesla. The robot or automaton, this idea was completely new for its time. No one had ever even thought of even doing the things that Nikola Tesla was doing at his time. So he thought, he was always thinking of not only the commercialization, but the base technologies which would allow the commercialization to develop in the future. And he believed that robots or automatons could be used as labor-saving devices or used to even mechanize dangerous tasks in certain industries. A lot of the Tesla principles were adapted by other scientists, including John Hayes Hammond Jr., who developed an electronic dog on wheels that followed him like a live pup. It was motor operated and controlled by a light beam through selenium cells placed behind lenses used for eyes. He also operated a yacht entirely without a crew, which was sent out to sea from Boston Harbor and brought back to its wharf by wireless control. Again, we're talking about prodigal genius, the life of Nikola Tesla, inventor extraordinary, by John J. O'Neill. It's a limited edition copy, and it's an absolute classic, and it was published by Neville Spearman Limited in the UK. It's an absolute classic, and we're celebrating Nikola Tesla's birthday. And again, other inventions. At one point, the Navy had put out a request for proposal for the creation of a torpedo, and Edison and other scientists had showed up and demonstrated their torpedo first, and it was a wired torpedo. But when Tesla came, he showed his invention, which was a wireless torpedo, again showing that he was completely ahead of his time, completely ahead of his day, much more advanced than the scientists around him. And it's easy to see how this could have caused some form of jealousy to occur when viewing Tesla's work, when viewing Tesla's methods. And it's easy to see how other scientists could have seen Tesla's patents or seen Tesla's methods or his inventions and said, what can I steal from this? And if I can't steal anything from it, maybe I shouldn't like it so much. And you not only see that among inventors, you see that among actors, you see that among dancers, you see that among musicians, you see that among businessmen, you see that among authors, you see that among people in any industry, because that's a human nature and something that Tesla was unfortunate enough to face, and something that many of us who also feel that we're overachievers or do more than others also feel that we have to face. But again, Nikola Tesla, happy birthday, and we really thank you for the great inventions you've given us. And the world system, again, was absolutely tremendous in shaping how scientists viewed technology, and Tesla was able to take technology and move it to a completely new scale that had never been seen before. Tesla would sometimes attend meetings to the Hotel Regis, where he eventually even made his home there. He would attend meetings of the Engineers Club. He was offered numerous medals by numerous organizations and committees and institutes who absolutely adored and loved his work because he was a true pioneer in shaping how current and for the past 70 or 80 years, how scientists have viewed science, but in Tesla's form, it was magic because, to quote one of the great authors, then paraphrase him, anything that's, you can't tell apart from magic. It's science that cannot be told apart from magic. Any technology that can't be told apart from magic is magic. And Tesla was absolutely a wizard in his day compared to any of the other scientists like Edison. And again, his working with the Westinghouse company and being offered at one point profits and shares in the Westinghouse company. And at one point you had Mr. Westinghouse, George Westinghouse, coming back to Tesla and asking him to give those shares back. Those shares now would have been worth billions of dollars, but Tesla was a man of his day, and that was a gentleman, and that was what it was for a man to give his word, to say, can you do this for me, a favor? A man would go and take his own shirt off and give it to another man, because that's how human beings acted toward each other in the United States and in other countries around the world. People really cared for each other, and George Westinghouse saved Tesla when he needed it, and Tesla returned the favor by returning the shares, although he had no reason to. It was his shares, and again, it would have made him very rich and would have been able to help him fund the rest of his inventions for the rest of his life. He decided to forego those royalties in return for George Westinghouse's patronage of him when he was having financial difficulties and when he was having problems, and when he was facing off against Edison, George Westinghouse was his ally and did help him, as did Pierpont Morgan, J. Pierpont Morgan, who was also a patron to Nikola Tesla. Whatever other problems he had facing in the industrial world, we won't go there, but what's important is he was a patron of Nikola Tesla, which means he was a patron of the arts, he was a patron of the sciences, and he deserves as much respect as the writer of this book, because he supported Nikola Tesla during the time when everyone had turned against Nikola Tesla, especially everyone who was allied with Edison, and there was many companies and many organizations who were allied with Edison. In fact, Edison was and still is a favorite among Americans, and Tesla has been almost forgotten about, and it's almost a tragedy because he's such a great man who gave us so many great things, but again, he's been overlooked. And to go back to some of his earlier inventions and what he did, the Tesla coil was so important, was so revolutionary for its time. Again, the transmission of wireless messages was so revolutionary for his time. And Tesla would not sit about, he did not have a calculating mind for profits. He didn't sit and think about profits or how much profit did I make today. What he thought was, how am I changing the world today? What have I invented that's going to be commercialized in the future, that's going to end up saving you time, saving you labor, making you more money, making you happier, but not necessarily in that order. But Tesla was most important, for Tesla, what was most important was not profit. For Tesla, what was most important was helping humanity, and that's what he believed in, and that's why he spent all his time in a laboratory rather than out schmoozing or socializing or spending his time attempting to make himself look better in the eyes of anyone else. He didn't have to make himself look better. His inventions made him look better. His inventions were what made him great, and that's why he spent all his time working on his inventions. And he didn't spend time going after the people who were stealing his inventions, because by the time they were thinking about stealing his inventions, he had invented something completely new. He was so ahead of his day. he was so much more intelligent than any other scientists around him, and again, that must have spurred some form of jealousy among those scientists, as it does in any industry, and you can see that it was natural for other scientists to dislike or to disregard the importance, the genius, the uniqueness of Mr. Nikola Tesla. Again, we're talking about Prodigal Genius, The Life of Nikola Tesla, Inventor Extraordinary by John J. O'Neill, author John J. O'Neill. And this copy I'm holding in particular is a limited edition copy, a special limited edition copy of 1,500 copies, and it was published by the Neville Spearman Limited company in the UK, and it is an absolute authoritative book, and it is in fact the most authoritative book that I've seen on Tesla, and I've read quite a few books on Tesla, but this is the most authoritative book that has ever been written on Tesla, and it's by John J. O'Neill. The name is Prodigal Genius, The Life of Nikola Tesla, Inventor Extraordinary. And just to talk about Nikola Tesla in 1912, in 1912, Nikola Tesla was awarded the Nobel Prize. The Nobel Prize, as you all know, is founded by Alfred B. Nobel, the Swedish scientist who gained his wealth through the invention of dynamite. So it makes it much more interesting now that you know that we have a Nobel Peace Prize. So, but if you look at Nikola Tesla in 1912, it was almost a shame for him to have to step up and share the Nobel Peace Prize with Thomas Edison, because Thomas Edison, although he was an employer of Nikola Tesla, was in no way legitimate to be an employer of Nikola Tesla, because Nikola Tesla was so much more gifted, talented, and brought so much more to the table than Edison ever could. And Nikola Tesla shared the prize money, his share, which at that time was around $20,000 in 1912, which was, I'm sure, a hefty sum today. But he used that money again on his inventions, because that's what he was thinking about, the invention of useful applications, useful appliances, the discovery of new principles, and that's what he worked on. And Tesla thought of himself as a discoverer. That's how he viewed himself, as he's discovering new principles in science. He's taking those principles that he's had in his mind since he was a child and exposing them, because he always knew that they existed. Whereas Edison thought of himself as an inventor. So it was much different. So Tesla would create the principles, but others, thousands of scientists, would look to somehow commercialize these technologies which Tesla would originally create. So it was so important for Tesla to go after first the principles, because he knew, of course, it was the principles that guide the science. So again, we're talking about the Life of Nikola Tesla, Prodigal Genius by John J. O'Neill. And one of the things that Tesla was famous for was giving speeches, and he would deliver speeches. Some of Nikola Tesla's speeches would go into 40,000 words. I mean, his speeches were long, but his speeches were gold. People loved listening to his speeches. He would give speeches throughout Europe. He would be invited all throughout Europe to speak. And they loved listening to him, because this man was an absolute unique man and a genius. But there were many detractors and people who put out negative press, negative articles, negative news to somehow degrade, scare the public in regards to Nikola Tesla and his inventions. And Nikola Tesla, although was somewhat perturbed, somewhat frustrated, he never stopped. He never stopped moving forward. And a principle that all of us can learn is it doesn't matter how frustrated you are, what problems occur for you, nothing should stop you from moving forward. And that's exactly what Tesla's attitude was. He was resolved by his theories. He was resolved by his science. He trusted in his science, and he moved forward with this result. And any money he had, he would put into his inventions and creating and moving forward, because he believed that his principles were correct. He believed his principles were correct, and he found that they were, and he was able to prove that to the world. And that's why Nikola Tesla is the absolute genius that he is, because he stood behind his word. He did what he said he was going to do, and he proved that to the public. And it was very important for him to be able to show that, and that's why we celebrate him. We celebrate his birthday. We celebrate his genius. We celebrate what could be called, man's greatest achievement, the ability to harness the powers of science, the original reasons why the Renaissance scientists like John Dee and Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa did science, what was then thought of as primitive magic. It was really primitive science. It wasn't magic. Alchemy was the science, and this was the science that eventually developed into the great minds that we have, like Nikola Tesla. And again, we're talking about John J. O'Neill's prodigal genius, the life of Nikola Tesla. And again, he was a great man. It was his birthday, and Westinghouse and many of us who are talking on the radio or using a television or turning on a neon light in a store owe this man a huge, huge, huge debt of gratitude, because, again, there will never be another inventor like him. But we should celebrate him and celebrate his birthday every year on July 10th. And we should celebrate the man by telling everyone about the greatness of Tesla. And we should be a patron of the saints and go to events like steampunk events that bring a Tesla coil and celebrate these alternative energies. And we should be a fan of science, and we should support science, and we should learn more about Tesla, because the more we learn about Tesla, the more we learn about ourselves. Man's great achievement, when I say man, I mean man and woman, all human beings, great achievement to be able to harness the powers of electricity, to be able to harness the powers of nature, to be able to use that for the betterment of mankind, to better the lives of all around, to find those principles in science, to use those principles in science. And his education, again, was absolutely superb. His lectures would reach 40,000 words, long lectures, but people enjoyed and loved listening to his words, because he was a truly, truly, truly unique scientist. Birthday, and we're going to go ahead and take you out with some Tchaikovsky. Thank you for listening, and this show was brought to you by MikazukiPublishingHouse.com, and you can check us out at www.MikazukiPublishingHouse.com. That's MikazukiPublishingHouse.com. I'm your host, Kamis Mostofi. Thank you for listening, and have a great night.